Welcome to your deep dive. We're diving into the world of credit cards, and you've given us a really interesting mix of sources for this one. We've got beginner guides, we've got some pretty intense critiques of the whole industry. It's kind of like we're trying to figure out, are credit cards like a financial superpower? Or are they more like a trap, like disguised as convenience?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It really is a bit of both, isn't it?
It is.
And the sources you gave us bring up some really important questions, like how do we actually use credit cards to build wealth
Yeah.
instead of just, ending up in debt? And how do we make sense of all those rewards programs and interest rates and all that stuff?
Oh, don't even get me started on the rewards programs. I get so overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, so to even start to get a handle on all of this,
Yeah.
maybe we should start with how our brains work. Like the psychology of how we use credit cards.
Absolutely.
Because, we're not robots, right? There are definitely emotional and psychological things at play here that affect how we use our credit cards.
Oh, yeah, for sure. One of the sources you provided, Media V's Reality, goes really deep on this.
Okay.
They argue that credit card companies are really good at exploiting our cognitive biases.
Okay, so cognitive biases. Remind me what those are again. Those are basically like the mental shortcuts our brains use to make decisions, right?
Exactly. And sometimes those shortcuts can lead us to make decisions that aren't really in our best interest, especially when it comes to spending.
Ah, okay, I see.
Yeah.
So how does this actually play out when we're using our credit cards?
Well, one key bias is what they call delayed loss. So think about it. When you pay with a credit card, you don't see the money leaving your account right away.
Yeah.
There's that separation between like the purchase and the payment. And that makes it feel less painful, almost like you're getting something for free.
Oh, okay. So that's why I sometimes feel less guilty when I'm like swiping my card than when I'm handing over cash. It's like my brain is tricking me into thinking it's not real money.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the credit card companies are hoping for.
They're banking on it, literally. Okay, speaking of banking,
Yeah.
let's rewind a little bit, go back in time. One of the sources you sent, Jake Tran, he dives into the history of credit cards all the way back to the Diners Club card in 1949.
Oh, yeah, Diners Club. That's a classic.
Oh.
It's amazing how it all started. It wasn't even a true credit card like what we have today.
Really?
You had to pay your balance in full every month.
Yeah.
But it did kind of introduce that idea of, paying with plastic, which was a really big deal at the time.
Oh, so was it all about convenience from the very beginning?
Convenience, for sure.
Yeah.
And also status. Diners Club was marketed to, like, businessmen and, elites.
I see.
And the card itself became kind of a status symbol.
Fancy. Okay, so then Bank Americard came along in 1958, which later turned into Visa. This was the first general-purpose credit card. But Jake Tran pointed out that it wasn't profitable right away.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? They actually lost money at first because of fraud, actually.
Yeah.
But they were playing the long game, right? They were building a massive customer base and setting the stage for what we have today.
Okay, so what happened next? Was it just like slow and steady, credit card domination from there?
Not quite. There were a few key moments that really changed things.
Okay.
In the late 80s and early 90s, there was this wave of deregulation that really shook things up.
Yeah, Jake Tran talked about South Dakota getting rid of its cap on credit card interest rates.
Right.
Which basically turned it into, like, a credit card haven.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
All the banks flocked to South Dakota to take advantage of, those more relaxed rules.
It makes sense, though.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there was that Supreme Court decision, the Marquette decision, in 1991.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
And it basically said that banks could export those higher interest rates from South Dakota to other states.
Exactly. So a bank based in South Dakota could charge high interest rates anywhere in the U.S., regardless of what the local rules were.
Wow. So that was a really big turning point.
It was a huge win for the credit card companies.
So we've got these psychological factors like delayed loss, making us feel less pain when we spend. And then we've got deregulation happening, allowing for these higher interest rates. It's like almost a perfect storm for creating a system that, benefits the credit card companies more than it benefits us.
You're exactly right. And remember that psychological manipulation we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
that gets even more potent when you combine it with high interest rates.
Right, because now the pain of paying later isn't just about, like, the amount you spent, but it's about all that extra money you're racking up in interest.
Exactly. And this is where things can get really dangerous, especially for people who are new to credit cards or maybe who are already kind of struggling financially.
Yeah, Jake Tran talks about how credit card companies target college students.
Oh, yeah.
Who are often, they want to build credit, but they might not really fully understand how interest rates work.
Yeah. It's like giving someone a really powerful tool without teaching them how to use it safely,
Right.
And a lot of young people end up falling into these debt traps that can take years and years to get out of.
Oh, that's scary. So we've got this, like, perfect storm brewing, the psychology of spending, we've got deregulation, we've got this targeted marketing. And all that is kind of pointing to this big question. Can we actually use credit cards to our advantage?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
And, your sources actually have some really smart strategies for, like, maximizing rewards and minimizing those costs.
Okay, good. Because I was getting a little worried there for a second.
Yeah, no, it's definitely possible. But it's crucial to really understand the basics first.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are the absolute essentials we need to know about how credit cards work before we even start talking about, like, rewards and strategies and stuff?
Okay, so one of your sources, Brian Jung, he uses this great analogy in his Ultimate Beginner's Guide video.
Okay.
Imagine borrowing money from a friend in school to buy a candy bar. You promise to pay them back later, maybe with a little extra as, interest.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the credit card company is like the friend who's lending you the money, and the interest is their fee for letting you use it.
Okay, I got it. So what about credit scores? I know they're, like, really important, but I'm not totally clear on how they actually work.
Okay, so think of your credit score kind of like your financial GPA.
Okay.
It's a 3-digit number that tells lenders how responsible you are with money. And the higher your score is, the better the interest rates and benefits you'll get.
Got it. So good credit score, good reputation with the banks, but how do you actually build good credit?
It all comes down to, how you use your credit cards. Paying your bills on time, keeping your credit utilization low, and having a mix of credit accounts can all help to boost your score.
Okay, so now that we understand the basics, how credit cards work, why credit scores matter.
Right.
I'm ready to hear about how we can actually use these things to our advantage.
Okay, so it sounds like you're ready to dive into the world of rewards.
Yes. It sounds like your source, Brian Young, has some interesting strategies. Let's hear it.
He does. He's got a whole roadmap laid out, and it starts with something called welcome bonuses. He lays out a whole roadmap in his videos, starting with something called welcome bonuses.
Welcome bonuses.
Yeah.
What are those?
It's like a signing bonus when you open a new credit card account.
Okay.
A lot of cards will offer you like a big chunk of points or even cash back if you spend a certain amount within the first few months.
Oh, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
But isn't there credit card companies aren't exactly known for, like, giving away free money.
You're right to be cautious. It's really important to read that fine print.
Yeah.
And make sure you understand the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
But if you're strategic about it, welcome bonuses can be a great way to kind of jumpstart your rewards.
Okay, so let's say I'm ready to, like, dive into this whole rewards world.
Yeah.
What's my first step?
Brian Jung really emphasizes choosing cards that align with your spending habits.
Okay.
He calls these category bonuses.
Wait.
So think about the things you spend money on regularly.
Yeah.
Like groceries, gas, travel.
Mm-hmm.
There are cards out there that offer extra rewards in those specific categories.
So if I'm, like, a foodie who loves trying new restaurants all the time,
Yes.
I should look for a card with good dining rewards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about making the system work for you.
Yeah.
Instead of just getting like generic rewards.
Right.
You're earning extra points or cash back on the things you were already going to buy anyway.
Smart. Okay, now one thing that always confuses me is travel rewards. There are so many different programs and point systems. It's, like, overwhelming.
It can be a lot to navigate.
It is.
But Brian Jung actually breaks it down in a way that makes it much more manageable.
Okay.
He talks about using points for flights, hotels, even upgrades to first class.
Wait, so I could actually use my points to, like, fly in style?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But how do I even begin to figure out which travel rewards programs are the best for me?
Well, Jung recommends kind of focusing on a few key programs
Okay.
and learning those really well. He often talks about Chase Ultimate Rewards and American Express membership rewards.
Okay.
Because they're very flexible.
Yeah.
You can transfer your points to a bunch of different airlines and hotels.
Yeah.
It gives you more options.
So it's not just about earning the points.
Right.
It's knowing how to use them effectively.
Exactly. Jung even has this whole video where he, walks you through how to book a flight using points, step by step.
Oh, cool.
He shows you how to find the best deals and get the most value out of your points.
Sounds like he's really passionate about this stuff.
He is. He's great.
It's cool.
But let's be real here. Not everyone is. Like a credit card whiz like Brian Young, right?
True.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not.
But even if you're not ready for, those super advanced strategies, there are still some basic principles that everyone can benefit from.
Like what?
Well, one of the most important things is to always pay off your balance in full every month.
Okay.
Otherwise, the interest charges will just completely wipe out any rewards you earn.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like taking one step forward and two steps back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's crucial to treat credit cards like tools, not like free money.
Right.
Always remember that you're borrowing money and you will have to pay it back eventually.
Okay, so we've talked about choosing the right cards,
Yep.
maximizing rewards, and always paying our balances on time.
Mhm.
Is there anything else we should keep in mind when we're using our credit cards?
One thing Brian Young stresses is just being mindful of your spending.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get caught up in chasing those rewards and forget about the big picture.
Right. It's like, those loyalty programs at coffee shops.
Oh, yeah.
You end up buying more lattes than you normally would just to get that free drink.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to have a budget and actually track your spending.
Yeah.
Make sure you're using credit cards to supplement your financial goals, not to sabotage them.
So it's all about balance and intention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also important to remember that the credit card landscape is constantly changing.
Oh, for sure.
New cards come out all the time. Rewards programs can be adjusted. It's important to kind of stay informed and do your research.
Speaking of research, one of your sources, Futureproof, takes a much more critical stance on credit cards.
Okay.
They argue that even if you're really good at managing your credit cards and you avoid debt and you maximize your rewards, there are still these hidden costs that we all end up paying for.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
Futureproof's video, Why Credit Cards Suck for Everybody, really dives into the dark side of the industry.
Okay, so we're moving from the individual level to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
How do credit cards affect businesses, especially small businesses?
Well, the main issue is something called merchant fees.
Okay.
So every time you swipe your credit card, the business has to pay a fee to the credit card company.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, it's not just a free transaction for them.
Wow, so those fees can really add up.
Oh, yeah, they can range from 1% to 3% of the purchase amount,
Okay.
plus a flat fee per transaction.
Wow. So all those amazing rewards programs we were just talking about,
Yeah.
they're actually costing businesses money.
Exactly. And for small businesses with, really tight margins,
Yeah.
those fees can really make a difference. It's like a hidden tax that's eating into their profits.
That seems really unfair. I mean, small businesses are already struggling to compete with big corporations.
Right. And Futureproof actually uses Walmart as an example. A few years ago, Walmart stopped accepting Visa at some of their Canadian stores because they felt that the fees were too high.
Wait, Walmart? They're huge. If they're pushing back against these fees, imagine the pressure on small businesses.
Exactly. And it's not just the fees themselves.
Yeah.
Banks can also hold businesses responsible for fraudulent transactions
Ooh, wow.
that are made with stolen credit cards.
So if someone steals my card and goes on a shopping spree,
Yeah.
the businesses where they made those purchases might have to pay for it?
It's a risk they take every time they accept a credit card payment. And, as Futureproof points out, it's just one more burden placed on small businesses that, a lot of them just can't afford.
This whole conversation is making me rethink my credit card habits. I never really considered the impact on businesses before.
It's important to see the whole picture.
Yeah?
Futureproof isn't saying that we should all stop using credit cards altogether,
Right.
but they are encouraging more mindful use.
So what can we do to, minimize that negative impact?
They suggest considering alternatives, like debit cards or even cash, whenever possible,
Okay.
especially when you're supporting local businesses.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. If I can help a small business avoid those fees, I'm happy to do it.
Exactly. It's about being a conscious consumer
Mm-hmm.
and understanding, those ripple effects of our choices.
Okay, so we've gone from those individual strategies to, the bigger impact of the entire credit card industry.
Yeah.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface here.
We definitely have, but you've gained some really valuable insights from all those sources you provided.
I think so.
Now, the key is to take that knowledge and make it work for you.
Wow, this deep dive has been like a whirlwind.
Yeah.
We started with like psychology and then history, and then we got into some pretty tactical stuff, and now we're talking about the impact on society. It's a lot. I feel like I just went through like Credit Cards 101, a crash course.
You graduated with honors. But yeah, you've taken in a lot of information. I think the key now is to like figure out how you want to apply this to your own life.
So like, what's the biggest takeaway for me? What should I be focusing on?
I think the most important thing is to like shift your mindset a little bit. Stop thinking of credit cards just as a way to buy things. Start seeing them more as like financial tools that you can use to your advantage.
Oh, okay. It's like that saying, knowledge is power.
Right.
The more I understand how these things work, the more control I have.
And we got it. And remember, it's not just about maximizing those rewards. It's about minimizing costs, protecting yourself from debt, and being aware of like, the impact of your choices.
Okay, so it's like a balancing act.
Yeah.
I gotta find that like sweet spot where I'm getting the most out of my cards, but not falling into those traps.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment a little. Try different cards, see what works for you. There's no one right way to do it.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like anything else in life. You kind of learn as you go.
Right. And most importantly, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
I mean, there's so many resources online.
That's true.
Even those videos you gave us by Brian Young, they can really guide you.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to think credit cards were like a necessary evil.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of seeing them as more of an opportunity, like a way to actually make the system work for me instead of the other way around.
That's the perfect attitude.
Yeah.
Understanding the rules of the game lets you play strategically, maybe even come out ahead.
Okay, I like that. I have one last question.
Yeah.
Both of the sources we looked at, they focus a lot on like the individual side of things.
Right.
But what about the bigger issues, like the impact of credit cards on society?
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do as individuals to address those problems?
It's a great question. It's easy to feel a little powerless when you're dealing with like these big systemic issues.
Right.
But every choice we make as consumers has an impact.
So you're saying like even small actions can make a difference?
Absolutely. Supporting local businesses that, minimize their credit card use is one example. Or you can advocate for more transparency in the industry. Call out those predatory practices.
Yeah.
Educate people about, the real cost of credit cards.
It's kind of inspiring to think that even in a system that seems like totally rigged, we still have some power to make a change.
I love that. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being informed, making conscious choices.
Okay, well, I've definitely got a lot to think about. This deep dive has been eye-opening for sure.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. That deeper understanding helps you make better decisions. Maybe even contribute to a system that's fairer for everyone.
I feel way more equipped to deal with the whole credit card world now.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Thanks for walking me through this.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah.
And remember, when it comes to credit cards, knowledge really is your best defense.
Okay, and that wraps up our deep dive. Thanks for listening.